We acknowledge the First Peoples of Australia, who are the traditional custodians of the land and water where we live, work and play. We celebrate that this is the oldest living and continuous culture in the world. We are proud to be sharing the land that we work on and recognise that the sovereignty was never ceded. This is the library page, and you can get to the library catalogue through the intranet, departments, and then library. All of our resources can be accessed from here, including our databases. I just want to start with a quick run through the point of care resources or apps that you can have on your phone or tablets. The first one is Up to Date. It can be accessed, all of them can be accessed on the through the library page, or as I say, you can download the app onto your phone. Up to Date is an evidence-based physician-authored clinical decision support resource, which clinicians can trust to make the right point of care decisions. I've just got a screenshot of the search term, which is estrogen replacement therapy, which is AJ will run through later on as a literature search. But that gives you an idea of the headings that Up to Date would cover. And once you click on any of those blue type, then it's a rabbit hole to the information below it. Up to Date doesn't print out easily. It's more an online resource, but very, very useful. The next one I want to let you know that you have access to is therapeutic guidelines. The headings or guidelines on the left, they used to be individual books, but pocket-sized books. Now all the information is in the one platform. And as you can see with that search term of menopause on the top right-hand corner, you can see that the links to the guidelines within the resource over the platform. Another great resource is the BMJ Best Practice. Again, I've put in menopause, and that's the results that are retrieved. And so that's a deeper look into the menopause, and you can print this out. You can see on the top right-hand corner, you can view it as a PDF, and there's the different shortcuts, subheadings that you can click on, or you can print the whole topic, which is a great overview of a condition. Another great resource we have is ebooks through Access Medicine. We also have them through Ovid Medline, but these ones are accessible on the Access Medicine platform and also on your tablet or phone. And again, there's many books, but again, if we put in menopause, that's a sample of the chapters that relevant chapters from the books on that platform. There's also Lippincott Procedures and Advisor, which is a wonderful resource for the mainly nursing staff to be able to follow the right clinical pathway. For this, now I've shown you a brief overview of what you can access at the point of care. I can also show you, if you come into the library, I can show you the app on the phone if you want to have a look at it, or register. Just come and see us at the library and we can help you, or of course there's links on the library page. And I'll now hand you over to AJ to talk about the databases and how to break down a search.
Hi everyone, I just want to make sure. Okay, so I'm just going to go through what we'll be talking about in the session. So I'll be showing you how to access library databases and which ones to use. We'll talk about how to break your research question down into concepts, some database tips and tricks, so all of the little things and tricks you need to know about when you're using databases and running a search, how to put your search together and run it, and I'll be demonstrating that. And then we'll talk very briefly about how to export your results into bibliographic management software and how you can screen your results in Covidence. So there's several databases available to you through our library, and when I go to do our demo, I'll show you where you can access those, but they're all on the front catalogue page. Medline is the largest database containing over 31 million references to journal articles from over 5,200 worldwide journals. Medline focuses on biomedicine and health, and a study found that 85% of articles included in health systematic reviews came from Medline. Embase is another database that's available to you through the Bendigo Health Library. It's a biomedical and pharmacological database that contains more than 40 million records, including articles from more than 8,500 journals. It's especially strong in coverage of drug and pharmaceutical research, pharmacology, toxicology, and medical devices. So it's a really good database if you're looking at a particular drug or treatment. Embase and Medline both only index peer-reviewed literature, so you know when you're searching those databases that the journals should be fairly reliable. PsycInfo is another database that the library holds, and that's provided by APA. It's the premier abstracting and indexing database for behavioural and social sciences. So if you're doing a topic that's about wellbeing or mental health, PsycInfo is a good one to look at. It contains over 5 million peer-reviewed records, as well as book chapters and dissertations. CNAL is another one that we have, and that stands for the Cumulative Index to Nursing and Allied Health Literature. And that's a really great database for allied health disciplines like OT, physio, speech pathology, social work, etc. Just be mindful that PsycInfo and CNAL do include some materials that aren't peer-reviewed, but they do offer an option to limit to peer-reviewed content. The final one that we have database-wise is the Cochrane Library, and Cochrane specialise in really high-quality systematic reviews. So if you're looking for an article about a particular condition, the Cochrane Library systematic review would be what's considered the gold standard of literature. Cochrane also have a Central, which is the Central Register of Randomised Controlled Trials, so you can find those there. Depending on the purpose of your literature review, you may need to search in several databases. And if you're doing a systematic review, I would usually recommend at least 4 as your minimum. So to access the databases, when you're on site at the hospital, you should have seamless access through the library page. If you're trying to access from home, you will need an Open Athens account, and you can sign up for that via the library page as well. And you can always get in touch with us if you have any questions about how to do that. Which database is best for your topic will depend. So if you're not sure, ask us and we'll give you some advice. So your research question, it's really important when you're planning your literature review that you have a specific and answerable question. You don't want it to be too broad, you don't want it to be too narrow, you need to find the balance. It can be helpful to use mnemonics to break your question down into concepts. And some of you may have heard of PICO before. PICO is one that gets used a lot in medicine. But it's a really good framework for clinical questions. Other frameworks can be used for quality of questions. Some examples are SPICE and SPIDER. If you're looking at experiences, etc., they can be useful. I always say don't get too hung up on fitting your questions into one of these. It's really about breaking your question down into concepts, and that will help you structure your search and identify what your keywords are. So this is the question we will be using as our example for our searches today. You can see that it's a quite specific question and it's clinical, so PICO will fit with this quite well. So the question is, how effective is estrogen hormone replacement therapy at reducing hot flushes in women with a history of breast cancer? So it's quite specific. We're very clear about what we're looking for. So when using a PICO, I find a table is a really good way to break it down. So in this example, the P is, which stands for patient, is the women with a history of breast cancer. The I, the intervention, is estrogen replacement therapy. The C stands for comparison intervention, if there is one. Often there isn't, so that's okay. You can just leave the C out. And the O is the outcome. So for this question, we're looking for a very specific outcome, which is the reduction of hot flushes. So it's a good idea to include this in our literature search. But if your outcome is a more general outcome, like a improvement in wellbeing, it might be something you'll consider when you're screening your articles, but it's not something you would include in your search terms. So building your search strategy. To build a comprehensive search, think about each of your concepts and how they might be described. What are the synonyms and variations? How might others describe it? What terminology is used overseas? So, for example, we call university, but in America they would use the word college. So I would want to include both of those in my search. And has terminology changed over time? In medicine, that happens quite a lot, particularly in mental health and things like that. So it's important to consider all of the different ways your concepts might be described. For other ideas of how to come up with your search terms, consult fellow subject experts and colleagues. Look at the titles, abstracts and keywords of existing relevant articles. Find a Cochrane review on a similar topic, and that's a really good strategy for coming up with good search terms because Cochrane's systematic reviews are considered to be the gold standard. If you look at the appendix of those, there's usually all of the search strategies listed, so you can see all the different terms they've used. And there's also some cool tools online. So one text mining tool that I've used a little bit is called PubMed Reminer, and you can just find that on Google, put in some of your search terms and it comes up with a heap of suggestions. So that's a really handy tool as well. When we're having a look at Medline, you'll see the mesh. When we look up a mesh heading, there's also some good ways of pulling synonyms from there, but I'll show you that. So in this table, you can see that I've started to come up with some synonyms for the patient group in my example topic. So we were looking for women with a history of breast cancer. So I've got breast carcinoma, breast malignancy, breast tumour, etc. So these are some of the database tips and tricks that you can use to help make your search the best it can be. So truncation is the first one, and you might have used this before. It's probably one of the most well-known tricks. They're really handy because they save us entering alternatives for plurals. So you can see in the examples there, we put an asterisk at the end of teen, and that will retrieve teen, teens, teenager, teenagers, etc. Same with physiotherapy, we'll get physiotherapy, physiotherapist, physiotherapists, the plural. So the asterisk just finds those variants and alternate spellings for us. That means we don't have to type in 5 different versions of the same word. Wildcards. Wildcards can be used to replace a letter inside a word, and they're really good for spelling variants. So you can see there we've used the hash in organisation, and that will find it with the S or with the Z. So that allows for US or UK spelling. And we can use the question mark where there may or may not be a character. So in tumour, if we put the question mark there, it will find tumour with a U, and without the U. That's a really handy tool for the, again, different spellings. So paediatrics, anaesthesia, terms like that, you can use the wildcard. These wildcards are what's used in Ovid databases, so Medline, Embase and PsycInfo.
Respond, Code Blue, Emergency Department. Respond, Code Blue, Emergency Department.
But the symbols that you need to use in other databases might be different. So unfortunately, the databases all make things slightly different, but they all usually have a help menu up in the top right-hand corner where you can find the information about these things as well. So again, if you have any questions, get in contact with us because we're here to help.
Stand down, Code Blue Emergency Department. Stand down, Code Blue Emergency Department.
And this is the final trick I'll talk about. This is what's called a proximity operator. And these are a bit more of an advanced literature searching trick, but they work really well. So what the proximity operator does is finds the terms within a set range of each other. So in Medline, if we type in goal, ADJ5 and set with an asterisk, it's going to find goal and set within 5 words of each other in any order. So because we've got the truncation there, it will also find setting. So setting realistic and achievable goals, or goal setting would be picked up. So the higher the number, the further apart the words can be. So, you know, if you use a 10, for example, the words will just be in the same sentence. If you use a 2 or a 3, they're going to be fairly close to each other. In CINAHL, we can also use a proximity operator instead of ADJ. ADJ stands for adjacent. In CINAHL, you use a capital N, and that stands for near. So in the CINAHL example, I've got emergence with an asterisk within 2 words of nurse, and that'll find emergency nurses, emergency department nurses, nurses in emergencies, etc. So it's a good way of finding the terms near each other in various forms. So you can see there we've got a different operator for CINAHL and Medline. In other databases, these may change again. So help menu in the database, or get in touch with us if you've got questions about using those. So Boolean operators, you've probably heard of these before, but this is how we combine our search terms together. So we use OR to broaden our search and group together our different synonyms. So in that table before where I had breast cancer and breast malignancy or the other breast cancer terms, I would use OR to combine those words in the database. And then we use AND at the very end, and that's how we can narrow our search and only find items that include all of those concepts. I'll do a search demo in a moment and it'll all make a bit more sense. Another thing to be aware of is MESH, and the MESH are the subject headings that are included in most of our medical databases. So Medline has MESH, that's what we call them, but subject headings can be in other databases as well. MESH stands for Medical Subject Headings, and it's the National Library of Medicine's Controlled Vocabulary Thesaurus that's used for indexing articles in Medline and PubMed. Each article citation is associated with a set of MESH terms that describe the content of the citation. If you can search using MESH entry terms, instead of keyword searching, you can focus your search and find the most relevant citations. To broaden your search and make sure you don't miss any relevant studies, the golden rule if you're doing a systematic review is to use both headings and keywords. So you use the subject headings and the keywords. It's important to remember that not all records have subject headings, particularly if they're very new and they've been added to Medline, they may not have the mesh applied yet. And applying those mesh headings is a human process, and that's imperfect as well. So when we're doing a systematic review search where we want to make sure we don't miss any relevant articles, we do subject heading and keyword searching. So I'm going to... So this is just an example of the search screen in Medline, and I'm going to bring up Medline and do a live demo. So I'm hoping the people on Zoom can see the library page. Yell out if you can't. So this is our library page. To get to our databases, you can see we have this databases square here, and those resources Ant was talking about are accessible here as well. But if we click on Medline, this will take us to the Medline database. And usually my approach when I'm doing a search, the first step when I've thought about my synonyms, etc., and I'm going into the database is to find the subject heading for the first concept. So my patient group is women with breast cancer. So I'm just going to type breast cancer in. And you can see here by default, this map term to subject heading box is ticked. So it's going to search for those mesh for me. So it takes us into this menu. Sometimes there's more than one option, so there might be a list of options here, but I've looked for something quite specific, so it's just come up with the one relevant response. I always say it's a good idea to have a look at the scope note, particularly if there's more than one option. If you look at the scope note, it gives us an explanation, so a definition of the term, and then all of the different terms that subject heading's used for. So that's another good place to come up with some of those synonyms when you're planning your search as well. So if you look there, you might find, oh, I haven't got cancer, mammary cancer in my search term, so it might be worth adding that. Again, it depends on what the purpose of your review is. So if you're doing a systematic review, you really have to make sure that you don't miss any relevant terms. If we click on the subject heading, we can see where it fits in the thesaurus, or the tree of terms. So breast neoplasms comes under a broader term of neoplasms by site, which then comes under a broader term of neoplasms. There is an option to explode and focus. If you're doing a systematic review, I would never use the focus button because that just limits the results to where that mesh is a major subject heading, so one of the main themes of the article. The explode, if we click explode, what will happen is that we will actually include all of these terms that sit underneath that subject heading. So I always say to people, have a look, but don't just click explode on everything. Have a look because you might find that some of them are irrelevant. For example, we're not looking for male breast cancer. So I would choose not to explode. But if I wanted to, I could select a couple more, all the ones that were relevant and include those in my search. So I select the subject heading that's relevant and then I click continue. And I always just include all the subheadings. So subheadings are another sort of heading underneath the subject heading that specifies what the content of the article is. And a lot of articles don't have these subheadings, so I just include them all because we don't want to miss anything. Let's go, where's my mouse? Go back to so that's how the mesh works. let me know if you've got any. I should check the chat if there's any questions. No. Oh, there is some in the chat. Okay, that's just from press. So feel free to unmute if you have any questions at any stage. Okay, so this is just my search strategy that I'm going to run for you now in Medline. So you can see I've got my mesh, breast neoplasms, and then I've got my synonyms, and I'm going to combine them with OR. And then I've also looked up the mesh and have the terms for my intervention and my outcome as well. So I'm just going to go to Medline and run that now. Just find the terms. So usually I would include my subject heading as a keyword as well. So I'm going to untick that map term to subject heading, and I'm going to search for breast neoplasm. Where's that one there? With the truncation at the end. And I've also used the quotation marks there because that's how we can search for a phrase. So rather than just looking for the word breast or neoplasm on its own, by using the quotation marks, we're going to search for that specific phrase. We hit search. So the subject heading search looks for articles that have that subject heading applied and have been indexed with that. And a keyword search actually just looks for the words that we're typing in the record of the article. So now we'll do breast cancer. And just running them one at a time. So if you've done some database searching in the past, you might have combined these terms on the one line with OR. So I could type in breast cancer or breast tumour or breast malignancy on one line and come up with the same sort of result, but I don't tend to do it that way, and neither does Ange. We like to run all of them separately, and the reason for that is that we'll pick up if we make a mistake. So if I actually misspell one of the words and I get 0 results, then I'll realise that I've made a mistake. And the other thing is when I get to the end of my search, if I realise that one of those is bringing in things that I don't really want, I can take it out. So I can see what sort of impact that has on my results by taking terms out. And search for that. And if I was doing a systematic review, I would probably add in that, what was it, mammary, neoplasm, and some of those other terms, but we don't want to sit here watching me put terms in all day. So I'm going to stop there. But now what I do for so these are all my patient terms, my P from my PICO. I'm going to select those and combine with OR. And then we will do our intervention search. So again, I want to find the relevant subject heading. So I'll type in estrogen replacement therapy and see what comes up. So I've got map term to subject heading ticked. Hit search. And here you can see we get several options. So if there was more than one there that I wanted to choose, I could select those. But I'll just tick that. Just have a look what's underneath. So there's no other terms underneath that. I could select explode if there was, but no need to explode there. I may like to include hormone replacement therapy, though, as a broader subject heading. So I'll add that in now. So we can see I've got my 2 subject headings. In Medline, you know that you've done a mesh search by the / like after the term. So these ones are the mesh, and then the keyword searches have this .mp after them. So I'm going to do a proximity search now. So I'll put in estrogen, ADJ3 there. So this is going to find estrogen replacement therapy, estrogen therapy, therapies replacing estrogen, etc. So all of those different variants. And again, to allow for different spelling, I'm just going to look for estrogen with the O at the front. You can't use the wildcards or truncations at the front of a word for some reason. It's a bit annoying. You can use them in the word or at the end, but not at the front. So in this case, I've had to type that in as a separate search. Now I'll do hormone. Helps if you can spell. Replacement therapy. And then hormone replacement therapy is very often referred to as HRT. So I'll include HRT as well. So acronyms are good to include in your search, but you need to be mindful that sometimes they can have various meanings. So let's be aware of that. So again, I've got all of my synonyms and my subject headings for my intervention from my PICO. So now I'm going to click all of those searches and combine them with OR. So at number 6, I've got my I think we lost Zoom for a minute there. Can you hear us?
Yes, can hear you back. You're back now.
Okay, thanks, Emma. You didn't miss anything. I think I realised before I talked too much.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just share the screen again. We better do that. Can you see the screen?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, so as I was saying, we've got all of our patient terms at number 6 combined with OR, all of our intervention terms combined with OR at 12, and now we're going to do the outcome, which is hot flushes. And I mentioned earlier that if it wasn't a specific outcome, you might not include the outcome in the search, but because we are looking for a very specific outcome here. So again, I've ticked the box and I'm going to find the subject heading for hot flushes. And you can see it comes up with hot flashes. I just always like to check where it is in the tree. So there's nothing underneath that. It comes under very broad signs and symptoms, which is interesting. So I'll just continue, tick that one and continue, include all the subheadings. And we can see we have hot flushes here. And now I will put in, and I'm going to use the hash. So it finds hot flushes, etc. And I'll do the truncation. So it'll find hot flush, hot flushes. And we hit search. And now I'll select, and again, there may be some other terms that I haven't thought of here that you would include to describe hot flushes if you were doing a systematic review. But I'll just tick those both now and combine with or. And now the final fun bit is combining all of those searches. So we've got our patient group at 6, we've got our intervention terms at 12, and we've got our outcome terms at 15. And then we combine with and. And we get 429 results. If we scroll down, you can see Medline likes to highlight the terms that you've searched for. So we can see why articles are coming up. And you can see the results coming through. So we'll just go back to our slides for a minute. Find my mouse. Okay, so you can see in that table, that's the search strategy that I've just put through the Medline database. Once you've run your search, you might think, well, it's 400 and something articles, that's way too many. I need to apply some limits. So limits are really useful to help narrow your search, and there's various limits you can use. So age, groups, publication date, different types of publications. So you might want to only look at randomized controlled trials, for example. You can limit to language. So if you only want English articles, and there's different other ones that can be applied as well. Limits are really useful for fast clinical searches, but if you're doing a systematic review, be really wary about using them. Any limiters you apply to a systematic review need to be justified, particularly a date range. So you can't just say, I'm going to look at the last 10 years. If you're writing a systematic review, it needs to be because, I don't know, estrogen replacement therapy wasn't invented until 2015, so I can apply a limit from then. Or if you're doing a study about technology, for example, you know, the technology wasn't in the same format as it is in the last 7 years. But we always apply the limits at the end of our search. I'm just going to show you how you can put some limits on. So in Medline, very easy to put limits on. We've got our limit box here, and then there's additional ones as well if we click on that. So that's where you can go in and do particular study types like RCTs, for example. But what I'll do is I'll just do a couple of simple ones. So English, and say we're only doing the last 10 years. So we go 2014 to current. And then we just hit search and it'll do the last line of the search for you. So you can see that's got our results down to 97 now. So they'll only be English language. They'll be the most recent research. So limits are a good way of narrowing down your search a bit. How are we going for time? I'm talking for too long, aren't I? I often get asked, how do I know if my search strategy is any good? So testing your search strategy, use a known set of relevant articles. So find a relevant article or several as your gold standard and test your search strategy. Does it find them? If you're missing known relevant studies, have a look at those and see, is there a subject heading or a keyword that you haven't included in your search? Sometimes it might be that you've searched for 3 concepts and only 2 of them are actually in that article. So you have to be really mindful of that. Another really handy tool is the press tool. So have your search strategy looked over by a librarian. We're happy to do that for you, or an experienced searcher in your field. And there's actually the press guidelines that can help with that. So that goes through what are the different things that should be covered in your search and how should that be put out as far as the truncations, wildcards, proximity operators, etc. So it has a checklist of questions to consider. Save yourself time in the future by saving your searches, and I always really emphasise this one, particularly if you're doing a big project like a systematic review. Once you've got your search done and you're happy with it, create an account in the database and save it so that you can get back to it later and rerun it. You may need to rerun it if you're doing a long-term project or hoping to publish in a journal. If the search hasn't been done in the last couple of months and you want to publish in a journal, they'll usually request that you do it again. The other thing you can do when you're saving is save it as an alert. So when a new article comes out that fits that search strategy in the database, you'll get an email and it will tell you there's a new article out. I'll just quickly show you in Medline. It's really easy to save your search. So you just click on here and hit save. And you need to have an account. So you can create one by clicking create account or sign in if you've already got one and then save the search. When you go into that save search screen, there's a little drop down that says permanent search or auto alert. If you want to set up the alert, you can do that there as well. But yes, I've seen many people that have had to rerun searches down the track and start again from, or try and remember what they did. So it's something I always really recommend. Means you can go back and see exactly what you did as well if you have to report on that for your publications or work as well. So reference management software is something that you might want to use to manage your search results. EndNote is an example of reference management software. So you can export all of your results from the database and organize them into folders if you're using something like EndNote. You can also add notes about your records. You can use EndNote to get rid of duplicates. So that's really handy if you're running the search across several databases. You'll get a lot of the same articles coming through, and then EndNote can remove those duplicates for you. You can also add tags to your references, and then of course use EndNote or any other reference management software to add your citations to your documents for you when you're writing up your papers. So the other thing you can do with your reference management software is also export your results into a screening tool. And one of the screening tools that you have access to at Bendigo Health is Covidence. So Covidence is available through the Bendigo Health Library, and you can use it to screen your articles and pick which ones you're actually going to include in your studies. And it's really important that you sign up through the library page to access our account. And I'll just bring this up. So we go back to our library page. So in this systematic search tools box, if you just click on that Covidence link, it'll take you to this page. You just enter your name and you have to use your Bendigo Health email address and you'll get an invitation to join Covidence. I'm just going to sign in so I can show you what it looks like. I'm just going to use yours, Ange. Is that okay? It's there.
Works.
So you can actually, if you don't have reference management software or you're not using it, you can actually export your results from databases into Covidence as well. Let's just show you. With our results, I'll just make sure we've got our 97 articles that we've ended up with at the end. So if I select all by ticking that box and then I click on export, you can choose the format here. So that can be EndNote, it can be RIS. If you're just using a different reference management software, RIS will work, but an RIS file will actually work with Covidence as well. So if you're not using reference management software, you can just export an RIS file and open that in your Covidence. And that'll actually just put all of those articles in for you fairly easily. I'm just going to pick one of yours, Ange. Is that okay?
Sure.
I'll just go back pane. Nothing in that one. I know there's some in here. But what happens when you import your articles into Covidence is that it will actually generate a Prisma for you. So you can see that there were 99 studies imported for screening, 98 were screened, 38 were deemed irrelevant, and 60 were then taken to the next stage for full text review. So usually the process is that you look at the title and the abstract of all of your articles from your database search, and then select the ones that you would like to see the full text for. So we haven't got any to screen here. Can't show. But what happens is that when you're in the screening screen, over here there'll be a yes, no, maybe button. So you can say, yes, it's relevant, no, it's not, it might be, and select that. The other thing you can do, if you're doing a systematic review, you're usually not doing it on your own. So in the settings here, this is where you can invite the other reviewers. So we can send in here, invite another reviewer, and that will send them an email that will allow them access to your Covidence project, and then they can do their screening as well. So, and you can change the settings. Again, we haven't got heaps of time to talk about it, but please get in touch and we can help you. The other thing with Covidence is that it has this really great knowledge base. So if we click on that, if you're in there and you're using it, there's all of these links to different articles about how to use it. And there's also a really good YouTube channel too. So lots of assistance there, but come and see us at the library. That's about enough of me talking. Did anyone have any questions? No.
Thank you so much,
No worries.
both of you. I'm already doing a research and I've compiled few articles.
Yes.
Now I don't even remember where they come from. Do you think it will be worth doing a search again and then use the Covidence to help me with the referencing, keeping track of everything?
Yeah, it depends what you're planning on doing with it. So if you've just got a few articles and that's all you need, that's fine. But if you're doing a proper literature search review,
Half past. We're just live at the moment.
Yeah. So if you're wanting to write a paper, then I would suggest you probably need to do the search and have everything documented, and go through the process.
Yeah, it's we're planning to make a like proper research project
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
going
That's
through
why it's
ethics.
important. That's why it's important to save your search as you go. And I
Yeah.
usually, as AJ said, when you save it, I usually put the date and that it's search one and so on, because then you can justify, or it helps you remember why you used that term and maybe that not another term as you progress through your searches. Obviously, you don't know what you don't know at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
add and subtract terms as you go through.
Yeah.
So, and as you go through the different databases, it helps you. So that's the science of it, is that it can be replicated.
Right.
And if you have a couple of good articles already, then that's really good, because you can look for those and see if they're coming up in your search when you run it, and make sure that you're including all the right terms.
And does it help with writing the literature review, or you just have to? Is there any software that helps?
With the writing,
Yes. We
no.
don't have any. We don't have any AI tool to do that.
For the references
And-
at the end. It's Sloan here from Research and Innovation. I'm thrilled that you want to do a research project, and we should talk. I promise you that these guys don't bite, so I would suggest maybe the best thing to do would be go down to the library and have a go. But do you mean when you're writing your article, do you mean the references at the end? Or do you mean how to structure your article?
How to structure the article, how to write the literature review. I think there is an item there in the project to write a little bit about the literature review. What does it say? Why? Justifications? Significant? So
We can certainly help you
Yeah.
and point you in the right direction for that.
I'm just trying to visualize that. I'm sure there's books in the library that let you know how to set out whatever sort of paper that you're writing, the methodology of it. And as Sloan says, we're more than welcome. You're more than welcome to contact us, and we can help you get started with writing it also. And as you know, the references you can cite, and that's where RefWorks comes into it also.
I've just changed the slide so you can
EndNote, sorry.
Yeah, so you can see our email
Yeah.
address. But,
Yeah.
come down and see us. There is also some tools that talk about what the different things that should be included in your article are, so they can help you sort of plan that. So yeah, come and see us.
yeah, I will do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you for attending.
Yeah, and are we able to access the slides? Because I
Yes.
can't. Yeah, all right. Thank you.
Yes,